This video discusses Lucky SHD 100 film and looks at how to use it, the film's characteristics, technical details, and sample images. Lucky SHD 100 is a medium-speed film available intermittently in 35mm and 120 and maybe 4x5 at some point. I think I recall seeing it in 4x5, but I don't think I got any in that format. I did shoot it in 120, however, all of the images you're going to see in this video were shot on 35mm. I'm told that Lucky films come in and out of production, with them currently not being in production. Wikipedia lists SHD 100 as having been discontinued in 2019. So as of this video's release, some usable stock will still be in circulation. Also, there was a 5-year production gap between SHD 100 and the new SHD 100, which is the film this video looks at. And so it's not impossible to think that this stock could come back as some future stock. Also, I was unable to verify if this is or is not the same emulsion and film as Shanghai GP3. It certainly looks the same as GP3 in 120, but there is no GP3 option in 35mm, at least none that I saw. So my best guess is that they're the same or very similar films from probably different factories. No images in this video were shot on Shanghai GP3, however. This section looks at my perception of different film characteristics. I'll discuss how I see the film's grain, tonal range, acutance, contrast, sharpness, gamma, and then I'll provide some added notes, suggested good uses, and thoughts on how to best digitize this film. For grain, it's heavy. It's like eating sand with your eyes. It's perfect for those occasions when you want the grain of 800 ISO film and the speed of 100. For tonality and tonal range, this is highly developer dependent, more than I've seen in other films. In general, tonal range on this film is poor. Weak developers will help you eke the most out of this film's limited range as a general rule of thumb, but as we'll see throughout the sample images, that's not always the case. Acutance is fairly meh. There's a lot of contrast, but the transitions between tones are poor. That sets this film up to be generally decent for portraits, in theory at least. Contrast is pretty good. It's easy to lose shadow and highlight detail, however, with this stock. For sharpness, it's kind of like trying to cut a tomato with a rolling pin. You'll get the details and you'll make out fine lines, kinda, but compared to other stocks in this speed range, there are far fewer fine details like eyelashes, hair, and grass that can be discerned as easily in the images as a general rule. The dynamic range, which is also called gamma, is lackluster. Pulling a full range of tones out of this film is about as hard as pulling a piano through a manhole without scratching it. Some additional notes on Lucky are that it consistently delivered thin negatives when I developed it using the published time. The exception to this was with Rodinal plus 50. This stock would probably benefit from pulling a stop, which means shooting it at 50 ISO with the grain of 800 or 1600. This is really high grain, or by overdeveloping the film a stop. For some good uses, portraits are okay because it's generally a soft film. I don't really have a second use for this film. Realistically, if I were being honest, I don't have a first use for this film. Were I to rank all of the film stocks I've used, from my most to my least favorite, this would be really near the bottom. I would strongly advise students and learners not to use this film despite the appealing price. The lack of consistent and predictable performance will undermine your ability to learn because the film won't behave in a consistent manner across rolls. For digital conversion, it's poor. This stock tends to develop thin, and that means that every single water stain, dust speck, chemical circle, or drop will survive into the scan. These negatives take forever to clean in post. And if you think that's bad, try printing one in an enlarger. As with many inexpensive films, your developing process and cleaning quality control need to be spot on to make the most of this film. And even then, it's not going to deliver what other, even inexpensive films can deliver. Lucky SHD 100 requires a lot more work and a lot more attention to process quality than most any other film I've used. So normally this is where I start going into technical data about the film. One guess what doesn't exist in any form at all for this film. If you guess technical data, you've got it. Let's just go on to camera settings. Recommended rating for this film is 50 or slower, or overdeveloping at 100, unless you're using Rodinal and then develop as specified, specifically using Rodinal plus 50. For filters, I would say just use none. Yes, a warm filter would improve the contrast across the images because the negatives do tend to be kind of flat. You're going to pull your contrast out in post or with filters in your enlarger. That said, this film blows out highlights and loses shadow detail like I lose my keys every morning. It's very easy to lose shadow detail in this film already, so even a light yellow filter is going to exacerbate that. So I strongly recommend no filters on this film. The developers I tried with this film are Adotech 4 at stand concentration, D76 plus 1 and plus 3, Ilfosol 3 plus 14, Rodinal at plus 25, plus 50 and stand, and RPXD at plus 19 and plus 75 stand developing. My personal favorite developer was RPXD plus 75 for stand developing. A very close second was Rodinal plus 50, and D76 plus 3 was my third favorite. The results for this perplexed the heck out of me because there is nothing in common there, and those are very different results than I'd expect to see for a typical 100 speed film and for a typical film where I like any one of those. This is also the only film I found that delivered its best results in RPXD for stand developing. The only commonality I can think of between these three developers is that they were at generally weak concentrations. And like high contrast films, like ADOX CMS 20 or RPX 25, slow soaks in weak developers tended to work the best here as a general rule, though as we're about to see, not always. So the worst were RPXD plus 19, which has earned itself the distinction of being my least favorite developer. RPXD in general, I just have not yet found a good film for it. Rodinal plus 100 stand developed was a close second in terms of worst options, and a very close third also was Adotech 4 plus 75 stand developed. All three of these delivered very thin negatives with terrible contrast. What's weird is that these two stand concentrations fly in the face of the idea that weak and slow developing works best for this film. So we're going to have to chalk that up to the way that the chemistry interacted with this film. With Adotech, that's easy to explain. It's a specialty product designed for exactly one film stock, ADOX CMS 22. I found it works acceptably with other stocks, and stand use for the Adotech does deliver some promising results with more stocks than just ADOX, but not with this film. When we do the ADOX CMS 22 video, which still needs some 4x5 examples taken on that stock before it'll be ready to go, there will be more examples of stand developing with Adotech 4, and there will be some that are very good. CMS 20 responds very well to Adotech either as a stand or as a standard inversion developer. With Adotech 4, as expensive as it is, stand developing with it is a nice way to save some money if you want to use it. Lucky new SHD 100 may be gone for good, or not, I don't know. I'm told that the Lucky factory is still open, but if this emulsion never returns, that's a-okay. If you've never shot this film, don't have FOMO. This film is way harder to control than it has any right to be given how cheap it is. If you bought this to be your first 3 rolls of film, that's fine, but after using this a few times, it's worth graduating immediately to another inexpensive film like Kentmere, Foma, or Ultrafine, all of which are fine stocks. All of them can deliver quality results, and all of them perform consistently. This film has some glaring flaws, primarily that it does not deliver consistent results. It does not deliver easily replicable quality results. It does not provide a good set of examples of what a film can do and what a quality stock is capable of, and why film photography provides exceptional depth and image character that digital photography cannot. So I get it, that there's a desire to shoot film on the cheap. It's expensive. Film is expensive. I get it. I shoot a lot of film. In 2019 alone, I spent $7,000 on film, developing, and chemistry to support this channel. The idea that a roll of film could be bought for around $4 to $5 instead of another black and white film at $8 to $11 is a temptation that's hard to resist. Resist it you must. Inconsistent results will drive the good photographer mad with frustration. They will drive the good photographer to anger at the opportunity cost of lost quality photographs. Time-consuming work in post-processing of the darkroom is a cost far greater than the cost of upgrading to even one tier higher in terms of film quality. Ask yourself how much the price difference is in the roll of film compared to this. Is it $2? What about $6? If you lose what could be a great photo, was it worth that $6? If you can salvage that great photo, but it takes an hour of your time in post on the computer, or 3 hours in the darkroom touching up your negative or touching up your print, is your time so valueless that that $6 is worth more? And yes, fixing problem photos in post or in the darkroom will teach you skills, but you will have enough opportunities to learn those skills that setting yourself up to fail by using a low-quality film stock does you no service at all. Value your time. Value your results. Yes, film will cost money. All art supplies will. Whether you buy a camera and film and chemistry, or an easel and canvases and brushes, or tap shoes and a suit and a cane, or a music stand and sheet music and a clarinet. Whatever art you want to pursue will come with costs, upfront and ongoing. Avoid the temptation in any art form to cut corners and save a few dollars. The cost on the back end for time and lost opportunities will exact a loan shark-like interest rate.